The Arctic is melting, but it's not just about polar bears anymore. Imagine a world where the fastest shipping route from Europe to Asia isn't through the Suez Canal, but directly over the top of the world. A world where trillions of dollars in untapped resources are suddenly accessible. This isn't science fiction, it's our rapidly changing Arctic, warming at 4 times the global average and sparking a new global power struggle that could redefine geopolitics for the 21st century. For centuries, the Arctic was humanity's final frontier, a desolate, impassable barrier of ice and darkness that kept nations separated and resources locked away. But something extraordinary is happening. A 2022 study found that the Arctic has warmed nearly 4 times faster than the rest of the planet since 1979, with some regions warming up to 7 times faster. This isn't just an environmental story anymore. It's the opening chapter of what might be the most consequential geopolitical shift of our time. As the ice retreats, it's revealing something that has global powers scrambling. 2 potential shipping highways that could revolutionize world trade, and beneath them an estimated 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of its undiscovered natural gas. We're talking about 90 billion barrels of oil and 1,669 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, according to the US Geological survey. Suddenly, the frozen wasteland at the top of our planet has become the most coveted real estate on Earth. But here's where things get complicated. 3 major powers are making their moves in this new great game, and their strategies couldn't be more different. Russia is building military bases and asserting control like it's defending its backyard. China, despite being thousands of miles away, has declared itself a near-Arctic state and is investing billions in what it calls the Polar Silk Road. Meanwhile, the United States and NATO are watching nervously, trying to figure out how to respond without triggering the very conflict they're trying to prevent. Let's start with the prize everyone's fighting over, 2 shipping routes that could change everything. The Northern Sea Route runs along Russia's Arctic coast, offering a journey from Rotterdam to Yokohama of just 10,000 nautical miles compared to 13,000 hours via the Suez Canal. That's not just a shorter distance, it's 10 to 15 days less travel time, which translates to massive savings in fuel costs and shipping fees. Then there's the Northwest Passage, winding through Canada's Arctic archipelago. It's more challenging to navigate than the Northern Sea Route, with complex ice conditions and shallower waters, but it represents another potential shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific. The economic implications are staggering. When you consider that a single container ship can carry goods worth hundreds of millions of dollars, shaving 2 weeks off a journey isn't just convenient, it's revolutionary. But who controls these new highways? That's where the legal battles begin. Russia claims significant authority over the Northern Sea Route, requiring ships to get permits, use Russian pilots, and pay for icebreaker escorts. They're treating it like their territorial waters. Similarly, Canada claims the Northwest Passage runs through its internal waters, while the United States and most maritime nations argue it should be treated as an international strait open to all. The UN Convention on the Law of the Sea provides the legal framework, but interpretations of internal waters versus international straits remain contentious. It's like having a new interstate highway system, but no one can agree on who owns the roads or who gets to set the tolls. Now let's talk about Russia's Arctic strategy, because this is where things get really interesting. From Moscow's perspective, the Arctic isn't just economically important, it's existentially vital. Russia's economy depends heavily on hydrocarbon exports, and as easily accessible reserves elsewhere decline, the Arctic represents their economic future. Since 2014, Russia has embarked on an unprecedented militarization of its Arctic territories. They've reopened at least 10 Soviet-era military bases and built new ones, including the impressive Arctic Trefoil base on Alexandra Land. This isn't just a small outpost, it's a self-contained facility that can house 150 personnel for up to 18 months in complete isolation, equipped with advanced air defense systems and designed to operate in the harshest conditions on Earth. Russia has deployed S-400 air defense systems, stationed MiG-31 fighter jets, and built the world's largest icebreaker fleet, including several nuclear-powered vessels. When you see this level of military investment, you have to ask, is this defensive or offensive? Russia frames it as defending their borders and economic interests. They point out that the Arctic represents a massive portion of their coastline and their future economic prosperity. The Yamal LNG project, for instance, is one of the world's largest liquefied natural gas operations, and it depends on the Northern Sea route to get its product to market. From this view, Russia is simply protecting what's theirs. But Western analysts see something more troubling. The scale and nature of Russia's military buildup goes far beyond what you'd need for territorial defense. Advanced offensive weaponry, bases positioned to control shipping lanes, and the ability to project power across the entire Arctic Ocean. This looks less like defense and more like an attempt to dominate the region entirely. The timing is also suspicious. Russia's Arctic militarization has accelerated alongside its broader confrontational approach to the West, culminating in the invasion of Ukraine. It's hard to separate Russia's Arctic ambitions from its broader geopolitical strategy of challenging the existing international order. But Russia isn't the only non-Western power making moves in the Arctic. Enter China, and this is where the story gets really fascinating. China is not an Arctic nation. Beijing is about as far from the Arctic Circle as you can get. Yet in 2018, China released its first official Arctic policy, declaring itself a near-Arctic state and outlining its vision for a polar Silk Road. How does a country with no Arctic territory become a near-Arctic state? According to Beijing, climate change and globalization make the Arctic everyone's business. They argue that as a major global economy and shipping nation, they have legitimate interests in Arctic routes and resources. It's a bold redefinition of what it means to be a stakeholder in a region. China's Polar Silk Road is part of their broader Belt and Road Initiative, and it's remarkably ambitious. They're investing in Arctic shipping routes, resource extraction projects, and research infrastructure. Chinese companies have taken a 20% stake in Russia's Yamal LNG project, giving them direct involvement in Arctic resource extraction and shipping via the Northern Sea route. But China's Arctic strategy goes beyond just economics. They've invested heavily in Arctic research, operating advanced icebreakers like the Chuelong-2 and establishing research stations like the Yellow River Station in Svalbard. This research provides valuable data about navigation, weather patterns, and resource locations, information that could be crucial for future commercial and potentially military operations. China's long-term goals appear to be threefold. First, they want to reduce their dependence on existing shipping routes, like the Suez Canal and the Strait of Malacca, which could be vulnerable to blockade in a conflict. Second, they need access to raw materials to fuel their economy, and the Arctic offers vast untapped reserves. Third, establishing a presence in the Arctic enhances China's global influence and challenges the existing international order dominated by Western powers. The genius of China's approach is that it's primarily economic and scientific rather than military. While Russia builds bases and deploys weapons, China builds partnerships and funds research. It's a softer form of power projection, but potentially just as effective in the long run. This brings us to how the United States and NATO are responding to these developments, and frankly, they seem to be playing catch-up. For years, Western powers treated the Arctic as a peripheral concern, focused instead on the Middle East, Asia-Pacific, and other regions. The rapid pace of change in the Arctic has caught them somewhat off guard. NATO's 2022 strategic concept explicitly identified Russia as the most significant and direct threat and acknowledged the Arctic's strategic importance. But translating that recognition into effective policy has been challenging. The United States operates only 2 active heavy icebreakers compared to Russia's fleet of over 40, including several nuclear-powered vessels. That's not just a numerical disadvantage, it's a fundamental capability gap. The US strategy emphasizes freedom of navigation, challenging both Russia's and Canada's claims over what America considers international waters. They've increased military exercises in the region, enhanced air patrols, and are working to strengthen alliances with other Arctic nations like Norway and Denmark. But there's a delicate balance to maintain. Too little response, and Russia and China could establish facts on the ground that become difficult to challenge. Too aggressive a response, and you risk triggering the very conflict you're trying to prevent. NATO faces additional challenges because Arctic nations within the alliance have different priorities. Norway is deeply concerned about Russian military activity near its borders. Denmark wants to assert sovereignty over areas connected to Greenland. Canada is focused on defending its claims to the Northwest Passage. Coordinating a unified Arctic strategy among allies with different interests and capabilities is proving complex. There's also growing concern about China's activities. While Russia is seen as the primary military threat, China's growing economic and scientific presence is viewed with increasing wariness. The worry is that China's research stations and commercial investments could have dual-use applications, providing intelligence and infrastructure that could be valuable in a future conflict. But perhaps the most troubling aspect of this new Arctic competition is its environmental impact. We're witnessing a cruel irony. Climate change is making the Arctic accessible, but the activities that access enables are accelerating climate change even further. Increased shipping brings multiple environmental risks. Ships emit black carbon that can settle on ice, reducing its ability to reflect sunlight and accelerating melting. There's the constant threat of oil spills in an environment where cleanup would be nearly impossible. Noise pollution from ships and industrial activity disrupts marine life, affecting everything from whales to seals to the polar bears everyone thinks about. Resource extraction presents even greater risks. Offshore drilling in the Arctic is inherently dangerous, with harsh weather, remote locations, and limited response capabilities. A major spill in the Arctic could be an environmental catastrophe with global implications. Mining operations can destroy habitats, introduce toxic substances, and disrupt ecosystems that have remained largely untouched for millennia. Studies have found high concentrations of microplastics trapped in Arctic sea ice, with one research project reporting up to 12,000 particles per litre. This indicates that even before major industrial development, the Arctic is already showing signs of widespread contamination from human activity. Perhaps most importantly, over 4 million people live in the Arctic, including more than 500,000 indigenous peoples whose traditional livelihoods depend on the environment. Increased industrial activity and environmental degradation directly threaten their way of life, food security, and cultural practices. Yet indigenous voices are often marginalized in discussions about Arctic development, despite their deep knowledge of the region and their rights as original inhabitants. The regulatory challenges are immense. The vastness and harshness of the Arctic make environmental monitoring, enforcement, and disaster response incredibly difficult and expensive. International cooperation is essential, but it's hard to achieve when the same nations you need to work with on environmental protection are the ones you're competing with for strategic advantage. So where does this leave us? The Arctic is transforming from a frozen barrier into a new theater of global competition, and the stakes couldn't be higher. We're looking at potential scenarios that range from cooperative international governance to outright conflict between major powers. The optimistic scenario involves nations recognizing that the Arctic's environmental fragility and the global implications of climate change require unprecedented cooperation. International law, particularly the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, could provide a framework for managing competing claims and ensuring sustainable development. Environmental protection could become a shared priority that brings nations together rather than driving them apart. But the pessimistic scenario is deeply concerning. As resources become more accessible and shipping routes more valuable, competition could intensify into confrontation. Military buildups could lead to accidents or miscalculations. Environmental disasters could trigger humanitarian crises. The Arctic could become the next flashpoint for great power conflict, with global implications far beyond the region itself. The most likely scenario probably falls somewhere in between. We'll likely see continued competition and tension, but also recognition that some level of cooperation is necessary. The key question is whether nations can develop mechanisms for managing their competition without letting it spiral into conflict. What's clear is that the decisions made about the Arctic in the next decade will have consequences for generations. This isn't just about shipping routes or oil reserves. It's about how humanity manages one of the last pristine environments on Earth, while navigating the complex realities of geopolitical competition in an interconnected world. The new Arctic Cold War is just beginning, and its outcome will help determine whether the 21st century is defined by cooperation or conflict, environmental protection or destruction, shared prosperity or zero-sum competition. The ice is melting, the players are positioning themselves, and the world is watching to see what emerges from the top of our rapidly changing planet. If you found this exploration of Arctic geopolitics fascinating, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the economic and political forces shaping our world. What do you think? Is the Arctic headed for cooperation or conflict? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to check out our other videos on global trade routes and resource competition.